Okay, hello. Today let's read this one: Memory, Truth, Love, or Knowledge in the Ethical Response. I wrote this one many months back, and for some reason I wasn't able to post it, and then it got lost in the files. But when I finally found it today, I didn't realize how long it was. I mean, it's not super long, but it's longer than the usual post. So I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize that it was such a big thing when I was writing it. The writing itself, when I recall, felt like a quick break. I was drinking coffee and it felt like it was as long as a regular cup. But okay, let's read. Memory, Truth, Love, or Knowledge in the Ethical Response. I wasn't really sure what to title it. But the beginning line says, what is the role of memory or knowledge or epistemology in ethics? Is learning or knowing necessary in being ethical? I think there's this normative understanding that behaviors are largely influenced by thought. So I wanted this to be an exploration on how perhaps we can see how these two facets or functions of the human person can be separated, and that maybe we can see the relationship between them as less of this strictly one dimensional causal relationship, but something else, something more uncertain. Here's a thought experiment on memory and relations or interactions. Going about a day in the mall while waiting for a particular time, you started feeling thirsty. You decided to go to a coffee shop to get coffee. But which kind of coffee? The immediate answer is a regular sized cold brew. You feel thirsty for something fresh like water, but you also do not seem to want plain water. You want something cold and refreshing, but not heavy like a milk based drink might be. You were thinking a light iced green tea would be nice as well, but in this particular mall you are in, such an option is not available. Never mind, I will get the cold brew. For whatever reason, you felt like choosing the cold brew instead of the iced Americano. Why that is so does not seem to really matter. In any case, your primary options reminds you of an identity that you have. The coffee drinker, the one who drinks strong black coffee all day long, the one your friends tease as a caffeine addict, the one whom people you know associate with coffee for coffee's sake. You remember interactions with others in which they come to associate you with the drink as your favorite or something essential to you. And further, with moments in which someone gifts you coffee because you love it and it has become their way of showing their affection for you. You go about the day and you have the memory of coffee and its connection with yourself. The people who know you have similar knowledge as well. Hence, when they think of you, they think of the things that are associated with you. Then, when it comes time to interact with you, the actions are influenced by those things that they know. They gift you coffee because they want to make you happy, for example. But what if one day, as you go about your day, you feel thirst, pass by your favorite coffee shop, and think, I do not want to drink coffee right now? Or we might go further, I dislike coffee, as though it's a fundamental thing now, the exact opposite of liking or loving coffee. What happens then? In this simple case, perhaps you go somewhere else where you can get something that you prefer instead, but fundamentally, did anything change? Are you no longer the person you once were when you preferred such a drink? Or how about in this case? You are going about the day, you feel thirst, and subsequently pass by the coffee shop that you used to regularly go to. That is all before you lost your memory. Now you have no knowledge of ever going to this place or of even liking coffee. You do not even know what coffee is. Are you still yourself? In that last example, not knowing anything, it might be easier to say, well, yes, of course, it is the same person, body and mind and all, right? Why should something like that be so fundamental that I would have to be a different person altogether? Essentially, it is still me. Yet, let us imagine that self as an other, maybe a loved one, a friend, an acquaintance, a colleague. You come to associate them with this one thing, coffee in this case. You build that relationship with them through this thing as you talk about coffee and share drinks with each other. You feel admiration towards them because of their persistence with this preference. Yes, that is my coffee drinker friend. Their role in your life becomes ultimately tied with this idea. What happens when all of a sudden they change? They no longer like coffee. They can no longer fulfill that identity of theirs that you have come to associate with them. Let us go back with being the subject again. When I first came to think of this idea, an immediate feeling that arose within me was fear. If I am no longer the same person that people have come to know me with, would they still like me? Would I still be loved? Granted, I still love coffee, but what if everything that they have come to know about me, everything else truly has changed? What then? I propose a method of reflection where we start with the fundamental level, on the form of love. This time, we are the other again. I think about the people that I love the most. The knowledge I have of them are hard to quantify. If you ask me what they do regularly, I have some ideas. But to me, as someone who loves them, I perceive them not as just a coffee drinker or this or that kind of person. To me, essentially, they are just themselves. Sometimes this is a point of concern for me somehow. I do not really know what this person likes or dislikes. I know what they do and sometimes what they think and often what they feel, but their preferences, their patterns are quite unknown to me on an epistemological level. I might say, well, they wear blue often, so perhaps they like that. But had they never told me directly that I like blue, I never would have known that. At the same time, on a kind of subconscious level, I seem to intuit ideas about them that would go against what could be known of them. For example, a loved one might wear black all the time. So the other people around them perceive that as them having black as their favorite color. But for some reason, I just know so clearly that they actually prefer red. This is not because they told me so and made me privy to such a secret, but I just somehow knew. I just somehow had this knowing. Whether that is because of small interactions that I had just concluded, well, it just has always been red to my knowing. I give that example as a way of showing that on the highest level of relations, it seems that knowledge, at least the conscious database one, is at best extraneous. It seems to be more inconsequential than I, as the subject, might have thought previously. I think if we try to answer the question, what is the role of knowledge of the other in ethics, as simply as we can know, we might just say nothing. One does not need to know the other in order to be good or loving or caring or however towards them. Hence, we might inquire further. So, should it simply be knowledge of the actions or the circumstances or of the good so that one can know what act of good can be done? Yet, that still does not seem right, for a lot of actions that we do on a regular basis are dependent on the other. One might do a particular action because it is kind, but is it ethical if the other to whom it is directed towards perceives it as a negative? Let's go back to our examples. Say your loved one changes completely, so much that they no longer have any memories whatsoever. Would I still love them? Of course, one might say for love somehow is more than just those things that can be associated with memory. One is love just as they are, and not because of arbitrary things associated with them, not even things like history or experience. Yet, if we turn this around back to ourselves, let us say I change completely with absolutely no memory of what is going on, so much that when someone says, "Hey, have this because you like this," you might respond, "No, I do not think I do like that." You no longer do the things associated with you and expected of you because you have completely forgotten them. Because you had forgotten them, there might be a milder response. It should be fine, something forgotten can be recalled again, things can be learned again. You can try to go back to that self, that identity that contained those memories or those associations in that way. But what if it is something different? What if you choose, or so it seems, to no longer associate yourself with that thing? That though there's this option that somehow you can try to go back to a previous state of being by, say, relearning the memories that you have lost or re practicing yourself with the habits that you used to do, that somehow you just say, or somehow it happens that you would rather, or the next happening is that that entire existence, that entire history is just completely disregarded. That no, I'm not going to do that. Let's take this one for example. Let us say the leader of a group says to their members, "I am no longer your leader. I no longer want to do so." This leader who pledged themselves to the group, the leader who had always been consistent, is suddenly this stranger that the group cannot understand. It seems so scary, does it not? Does it? Whether you're thinking of this in the perspective of the leader or the members, everything you held fundamentally ceases to be, at least with regards to this thing, this group. Hence, it is no surprise if the way it plays out in real life is that the leader tries to not change so as to avoid such a scary circumstance, and the members, if the big change does happen, would keep on trying to make sense of it. Why? What is the cause? What does this mean? If it is a matter of forgetting, I think it seems easier because they might simply say, "Well, let us help you remember," as in our previous notions of trying to go back to that previous state or trying to regain back that previous sense of identity. There might be other seeming causes too, such as saying, let's solve the problem, let's get rid of whatever had caused this loss of identity in the first place. But the challenge, and what I think is more realistic, is when the response to those inquiries is simply no reason. Right? Why did you change? Why are you no longer the person that you used to be? No reason. Just happened. Why did you forget? This just happened. Why do you not do this thing anymore? Just happened. Why is two no longer following one? Just happened. No reason. Whether that is because the subject or the leader in this case does not know, or that there's some hidden thing that cannot be discovered, although other fields of study might say that it is just reality, that there are too many variables in existence to be able to definitively or definitely and truthfully explain the cause of one thing. I love that notion. Does not matter. What matters is, what is the ethical response? What should people do in this case when there's a change in something that is, well, naturally malleable, naturally subject to change, but that such a change would result in a major disruption or difference in the very framework or the very field where this one small subject is in. What is the ethical response to such a change? Or I guess in another way we can say, what's the ethical response to being human, which is ethics in a nutshell. What do we mean by ethics anyway? For the purpose of this reflection, let us work with simple concepts and their simple conceptualizations: truth and love. Hence, the ethical response cannot be for anyone to hide the truth, whether they can explain or not the changes that they are experiencing, or at least to not continue in a path which they no longer align with. I feel like there's like a longer explanation to that, and how the ethical response is to allow for the change to happen because it's the truth. But let's leave that up to the marinating parts of the mind. Let's turn to the idea that is the inspiration to this reflection. Imagine a world in which there are no beliefs, hence, memory becomes more arbitrary. You go about your day and you see people you know their names, you know what they ate yesterday, you know what they are doing at the moment, and likewise they know you. But when they greet you, hey, so and so, you say, please call me this and that instead. They simply say, okay, this and that. Because that notion of a name that had been associated with you is not, doesn't stick. It's not grasping, it's arbitrary. And so when something changes, it just follows. So they simply say, okay, this and that, and your interactions continue similarly. Do you want to get coffee? They ask because, not because they know or they associate this thing with you and say that this is in alignment with their identity, rather because they have a sense that it would be a good idea. However, this means how they found out, whether because they have some memory of you drinking coffee and being happy, but not to the extent that it's associated with your very being or your identity towards them, or perhaps it had been discussed in a conversation before and it just came up. Doesn't matter. Again, they cannot verify it. They cannot verify that this thing that they know or this piece of information that they have about you is something that is actually true Because again, there are no beliefs, no associations. Hence, verifiable truth is out of the question, and belief, again, in this universe doesn't exist. You might say yes or no. The right answer just eventually brings itself up. Because in that case, you also would not have beliefs, hence no preferences. And so, whether you say yes to drinking coffee or not is not dependent on I've been drinking coffee every day of my life ever since, or I have this identity that I love coffee, and so of course I'm going to say yes. It's just that at this moment, oh, do I want to? Sure. Do I want to? Not really. Next time, or some other answers. In any case, in a world such as this, is truth possible? Is it then possible to be ethical? I guess what's asking here as well is whether we can have a conceptualization of truth outside of the notions of a verifiable truth, or a truth in which beliefs or belief is unnecessary. How that looks, I don't know. Or let's think about it. But those two things. So, is truth any other conceptualization of the truth other than this verifiable, belief based knowledge kind of truth possible? And in that regard, whether or not such a kind of truth is possible, is it possible to be ethical? Is truth necessary to be ethical? Or regardless of the possibility of truth, would it still be possible to be ethical? Finally, though, of course, I want to go back to the primary inquiry. Is love possible? How so? How would love without beliefs look like? I do think this was described somewhere in the middle of this thing. So, yes, that's memory, truth, love, or knowledge in the ethical response. I want to call it unpractical wisdom earlier, as a way of making more succinct the question, what is the role of memory or knowledge or epistemology in ethics? But memory, truth, love, simple concepts to think about. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Next time.